Then from Do-yon's consciousness came a dangerous idea. The field has to allow matter to pass through in certain circumstances, or the smaller ships couldn't dock with the mothership. If we could get something inside... A strike team, Taiwan's. Thought completed the concept. A small bioship might be able to slip through during a docking sequence. The plan formed in their collective consciousness with remarkable speed. A small specialized bioship would attempt to infiltrate the mothership during a moment when its shields were reconfigured for docking. Once inside, a team would deploy a specially designed biological agent directly into the mothership's central systems. I'll lead the strike team, Yunji found herself thinking before she had even consciously decided. No, Li's response came immediately. You're too valuable to the network. I'll go. Neither of you should go, Taiwan interjected. You're both needed to coordinate the fleet. But Yunji had already made up her mind. Through the network, she could sense that she was uniquely suited for this mission. As both a colonial commander and someone connected to the network, she could bridge the gap between the two types of human technology. The mothership will have both mechanical and biological components, she argued. We need someone who understands both. Reluctantly, the others agreed. As the main fleet engaged in a coordinated assault designed to draw attention away from the infiltration attempt, Yunji boarded a small bioship along with Do-yon and 3 new Terran specialists. The vessel itself was barely larger than a shuttle, its entire structure optimized for stealth. Remember, Do-yon told Yunji as they approached, the mothership, hidden in the chaos of battle. Once we're inside, our connection to the network will be limited. Their hull material blocks most of the signal. Yunji nodded, already feeling anxious about losing the sense of connection she had grown accustomed to in just a few hours. The neural link had become a comfort, a reminder that she wasn't alone. There. Opportunity came when a damaged harvester ship retreated toward the mothership. As the larger vessel's shields reconfigured to allow the injured ship to dock, their bioship slipped into the opening, its organic hull shifting to mimic the enemy. Vessel's signature. The interior of the mothership was like nothing Yunji had ever seen. Corridors that seemed partly grown and partly constructed stretched in all directions. The air was thick with what appeared to be spores or some kind of atmospheric control mechanism. Most disturbing were the walls themselves, which pulsed with activity as if the entire ship were a single living organism. This way, Do-yon whispered, consulting a small living device that functioned as both a scanner and a map. I'm detecting what might be their central nervous system, or the equivalent. As they moved deeper into the vessel, Yunji felt her connection to the network growing fainter. She could still sense the battle raging outside, but couldn't actively participate in the coordination. The loss felt like suddenly going blind in one eye. They encountered few harvesters inside. Most seemed to be either controlling ships or working in specialized chambers. The few they did see were tall insectoid creatures, with multiple limbs, and what appeared to be technological components integrated directly into their exoskeletons. They're like us, Do-yon observed quietly as they hid from a passing harvester. Part biological, part technological, but they've gone much further down that path. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the central chamber, a vast pulsing heart of machinery and organic matter intertwined. At its center floated a cluster of brain-like structures connected to countless interfaces. That's their equivalent. Of our neural network, Do-yon explained. Much more centralized than ours if we can introduce our agent there. But as they prepared to deploy their weapon, alarms began to sound throughout the ship. They had been discovered. We need more time, Do-yon said frantically as she worked to prepare the biological agent. At least 3 minutes. Through her fading connection to the network, Yunji sensed the fleet's growing desperation. The colonial ships were taking heavy damage, and several bioships had been completely disabled. They couldn't hold out much longer. An idea formed in Yunji's mind. Dangerous, possibly suicidal, but potentially their only chance. The neural connector, she said to Do-yon. Can it be modified to connect directly to their network? Do-yon's eyes widened with understanding and fear. Yes, but their system would overwhelm your mind instantly. You're not adapted for that. Kind of direct connection. I don't need to survive it, Yunji said grimly. I just need to distract them long enough for you to deploy the agent." Despite Do-yeon's protests, Yoonji approached the central cluster. Using the neural connector from the back of her neck, modified quickly by Do-yeon, she reached out toward the pulsing brain-like structures. "Tell Lee," Yoonji began, then shook her head. "He'll know. Through the network, he'll know." As the connection was established, pain unlike anything Yoonji had ever experienced flooded her consciousness. The Harvester network was vast, alien, impossibly complex. But in that moment of connection, she also understood them. Ancient beings who had evolved past individuality, who harvested biological resources not out of malice, but out of a cold, collective need to sustain their hive. With the last of her conscious control, Yoonji pushed herself deeper into their network, creating chaos and confusion throughout their systems. Ship controls faltered, weapons misfired, and for a crucial moment the Harvester Collective turned its attention inward to deal with this unexpected intrusion. In that moment, Do-yeon released the biological agent directly into the central system. As Yoonji's consciousness began to fade, overwhelmed by the alien network, she felt the mothership shudder as the agent began its work, disrupting the connection between the central mind and the rest of the Harvester fleet. Hours later, though, it felt like eternity, Yoonji woke in a recovery chamber back on Earth, her mind strangely quiet after the overwhelming connection to both networks. "You succeeded," Taewon told her when she was finally able to receive visitors. "When their central network collapsed, their ships lost coordination. We were able to disable most of them, and the rest retreated." "My mind," Yoonji whispered, her voice hoarse. "It feels different." Do-yeon stepped forward, her expression serious. "The connection to their network changed you. Your neural pathways have been permanently altered. We've done what we can to stabilize them, but I'll never be the same," Yoonji finished. In the weeks that followed, as she slowly recovered, Yoonji discovered that while she could no longer connect directly to the new Terran network, she retained a unique ability to understand both colonial and new Terran systems. She had become quite literally a bridge between the two branches of humanity. The victory against the Harvesters changed everything. The colonial fleet, initially sent to claim Earth's resources, had instead found itself fighting alongside the new Terrans to save all of humanity. Old prejudices began to crumble in the face of this shared triumph. 6 months later, Yoonji stood on the observation platform where she had first met Taewon, watching as colonial shuttles landed on the newly constructed spaceport below. But these weren't military vessels or mining ships. They carried scientists, students, and diplomats. The first wave of colonists returning to Earth not as conquerors, but as guests eager to learn from their long-lost cousins. "The first human return to Earth," Taewon remarked, standing beside her. "Though I suppose humans never truly left. 2 paths of human evolution rejoined," Yoonji said softly, "each with something to teach the other." Below them, the new Terran city pulsed with life, its biological structures adapting to accommodate the visitors. And in orbit above, colonial ships flew in formation with bioships, their crews working together to establish an early warning system against any future threats. Earth had not only survived humanity's absence, it had thrived and evolved alongside those left behind. And now, as humans returned to their ancestral home, they did so with newfound respect for the planet that had given them life, and for the cousins who had learned to live in true partnership with it. It was not the end of humanity's journey among the stars, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, one written together by those who left and those who remained. Do-yeon stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful. Earth's biosphere has evolved dramatically over the past 3 centuries. Our symbiotic relationship with the planet has created unique biological signatures that, unfortunately, seem to attract these creatures. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth, with its new biological wealth, was the perfect target for these harvesters. "How long do we have?" Yoonji asked. 5 days until they enter the solar system," Do-yeon replied. "Perhaps 2 weeks before they reach Earth." Lee paced the conference room. "We need to coordinate with colonial headquarters, request reinforcements." "There's no time," Taewon stated flatly. By the time your reinforcements arrive, Earth will be gone, and these harvesters will likely move on to your colonies next. The tension in the room was palpable, as centuries of distrust collided with the immediate threat. "What do you propose?" Lee finally asked. "An alliance," Taewon said simply. "Your technology with our biology. It's our only chance." Over the next 4 days, the uneasy alliance took shape. Colonial engineers worked alongside new Terran biologists, attempting to integrate their disparate systems. The colonial ship's conventional weapons were modified to deliver biological agents developed by the new Terrans, designed to target the harvester's unique cellular structure based on ancient samples preserved in both Lumi and Taikar archives. 1 Yi. The 5th day, as the first harvester ships entered the solar system, Yunji found herself in a laboratory deep within Earth's surface, watching Do-yeon work with a living console that responded to her touch. "There's something you're not telling us," Yunji said directly. "Something about how your people communicate with these biological systems." Do-yeon stopped working, her black eyes unreadable. After a long moment, she sighed. "Follow me," she said. They traveled deeper into the complex, finally reaching a sealed chamber. Inside was what appeared to be a massive brain, pulsing with the same bioluminescent patterns Yunji had seen throughout New Terran technology. "This is a neural network node," Do-yeon explained. "One of thousands across our planet. They form the backbone of our communication system." "It's alive," Yunji whispered. "Yes, and it connects to us." Do-yeon rolled up her sleeve, revealing implants similar to Sumin's but more extensive. "Most new Terrans can interface directly with the network. It allows us to coordinate instantly, to share information and make decisions collectively when needed." "Like a hive mind?" Yunji asked, alarmed. "No," Do-yeon corrected firmly. "We maintain our individuality. But in times of crisis, we can choose to connect more deeply, to act with perfect coordination. It's how our ships operate so effectively. The pilots are linked both to their vessels and to each other." Yunji understood immediately. "That's why our tactics were ineffective. You weren't reacting to our movements, you were anticipating them collectively." "Yes, and it's why we have a chance against the harvesters." "But," Do-yeon hesitated, "there's a problem. Our ships alone can't deliver enough firepower to damage their vessels. Your ships have the firepower but lack the coordination to penetrate their defenses." "What are you suggesting?" Do-yeon looked Yunji directly in the eyes. "We need to connect colonial ship commanders to our network, just temporarily. Just for the battle." The request sent shockwaves through the colonial leadership. The idea of connecting their minds to alien biology violated every protocol, every taboo about genetic tampering that had governed colonial society for centuries. "Absolutely not," Lee declared when Yunji brought the proposal to him. "We'll find another way." But as the first skirmishes with Harvester scout ships proved disastrous, despite their preparations, options dwindled. The Harvester's technology was unlike anything they had encountered. Not quite mechanical, not quite biological, but something in between. Their ships could regenerate damage almost instantly, unless struck with precisely coordinated attacks from multiple vectors. On the eve of the main Harvester fleet's arrival, Yunji found herself again facing Lee in the Dreadnought's tactical room. "Commander," she said, "we're out of options." Lee looked up from the battle plans, his face haggard from lack of sleep. "The new Terran network. You think it's our only chance?" "I do, and I volunteer to be the first connected." The weight of centuries of human division hung in the air between them. Finally, Lee nodded slowly. "Not just you," he said quietly. "If we're doing this, we're doing it together. I'll connect too." As dawn broke over Earth's transformed landscape, colonial officers and new Terran pilots gathered in connection chambers across the planet. The procedure was simple but profound, a living neural connector, grown specifically for each participant, attached to the base of the skull. "This will feel strange," Do-yeon warned Yunji as she prepared the connector. "Your mind isn't evolved for this kind of connection. It will be overwhelming at first." Yunji nodded, closing her eyes as the living tissue made contact with her skin, and suddenly she wasn't alone in her thoughts anymore. She could feel the others, Lee, the colonial, officers, the new Terran pilots, all connected in a vast web of consciousness. Not a hive mind, as she had feared, but a network of distinct individuals, each contributing their unique perspective to a shared awareness. As the Harvester fleet approached Earth's orbit, humanity stood united for the first time in centuries, ready to face an ancient enemy with a newfound strength born from the combined legacy of those who left and those who remained behind. The massive Harvester mothership entered Earth's orbit like a dark moon, its surface rippling with what appeared to be metallic scales. Around it swarmed hundreds of smaller vessels, each the size of a colonial cruiser. Against this armada waited the combined human fleet, 20 colonial warships and 30 new Terran bioships arranged in a defensive formation. Inside the neural network, Yunji experienced the battle before it began. She could feel the tension in Lee's mind, the calm determination of Taiwan, the analytical focus of Do-Yon, all layered with the thoughts of dozens of other connected pilots and commanders. It wasn't like hearing voices. It was more like remembering something she hadn't personally experienced. All ships prepare to engage, Lee's voice transmitted across the fleet, but Yunji also felt his command ripple through the network, carrying with it tactical nuances that words alone couldn't convey. The first wave of Harvester ships advanced, releasing swarms of drone-like objects that accelerated toward Earth. "Interceptors, engage those drones," Taiwan ordered through the network. 10 bioships broke formation, their organic hulls shifting to reveal what looked like specialized pores. They released clouds of glowing spores that sought out the drones, enveloping them in cocoon-like structures that disrupted their systems. Meanwhile, the colonial destroyers opened fire on the larger Harvester vessels, their modified weapons delivering the biological agents developed by the new Terrans. Where conventional energy weapons had bounced harmlessly off the Harvesters' hulls, these new weapons caused visible damage, the biological agents attacking the semi-organic components of the enemy ships. Through the network, Yunji could feel the collective elation as the first Harvester ship was disabled, its strange technology going dark as the bioweapons shut down its systems. But the victory was short-lived. The mothership released a pulse of energy that somehow purged the disabled vessel, allowing it to reactivate. "They're adapting," Do-Yon's thought flashed through the network. "The bioweapons won't work twice." Lee's tactical mind immediately processed this information. All ships switch to secondary attack pattern, target their propulsion systems with conventional weapons while the bioships deliver the second-generation agents. The battle shifted to a complex dance that would have been impossible without the neural connection. Colonial ships and bioships moved in perfect synchronization, each compensating for the other's weaknesses. When the Harvesters adapted to one attack vector, the human fleet instantly reorganized without a single verbal command being necessary. Yet despite this unprecedented coordination, the Harvesters continued to press forward. For every enemy ship they disabled, 2 more took its place. The humans were being pushed back toward Earth's atmosphere. "We need to target the mothership," Yunji thought into the network. "These smaller vessels are just fodder." "Agreed," came Lee's mental response. "But our weapons can't penetrate its defenses. Look." Through the shared awareness, Yunji saw what Lee had noticed. The mothership was surrounded by some kind of energy field that absorbed or deflected all attacks. Even the biological agents couldn't pass through it. Anet Systems allows for far greater population density than your mechanical settlements. The corporate representative, a sleek woman whose name tag read Director Jin, spoke up. "Preliminary scans indicate that Earth now contains several rare mineral compounds that don't exist elsewhere in known space. Compounds essential for next-generation FTL drive development." Yunji saw immediately where this was heading. "Council, the new Terrans have extended an offer of diplomatic relations. They're willing to discuss limited trade agreements." "Limited?" Lee raised an eyebrow. "That seems unnecessarily restrictive. Earth is the birthplace of humanity, all humanity. Its resources should benefit us all." "How you abandoned Earth," Sumin said, her voice remaining calm but taking on an edge. "You left our ancestors to die. We survived. We adapted. We built a new civilization. Earth is ours now." The meeting deteriorated from there. Within days, news of Earth's rebirth spread throughout the colonies. Public reaction was mixed. Some viewed the new Terrans as lost family to be welcomed, others saw them as abominations who had corrupted human genetics. And many, influenced by corporate media, saw Earth as a treasure trove of resources rightfully belonging to all humans. 1 month after Yunji's return, she received emergency orders to report to fleet headquarters. She found Li in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays of Earth. "Ah, Commander Kim," he greeted her. "Just the person I wanted to see. Your first-hand knowledge of the new Terran defense capabilities will be invaluable." Yunji stared at the tactical displays with growing horror. "These are invasion plans," Li sighed. "Not invasion, reintegration. The Council has authorized a resource security mission to Earth, 20 ships, including 5 heavy cruisers. You can't do this," Yunji protested. "The new Terrans are peaceful, but they won't simply hand over their world." "They won't have to fight if they're reasonable," Li replied. "We're bringing extraction teams for the mineral deposits located primarily in uninhabited regions. The new Terrans can keep their living cities. We're not monsters, Commander." But Yunji had seen enough colonial resource security operations to know how they typically ended. Once the corporations established a foothold, they rarely stopped expanding. "I request reassignment," she said firmly. "I won't participate in this mission." Li's expression hardened. "Request denied. You're the only officer who's made contact with these people. You'll serve as our liaison, unless you prefer court-martial for your unauthorized trip to Earth." Yunji felt trapped. As she left headquarters, she found Junho waiting for her. "I heard about the mission," he said quietly. 20 ships. They're not taking chances." "This will end badly," Yunji replied. "The new Terran's technology is different, but advanced, and they have an entire living planet working with them." That night, Yunji slipped into the secure facility where Sumin was being kept as an honored guest, effectively under house arrest since tensions had risen. "They're coming," Yunji told her without preamble. "A fleet, officially for resource extraction, but—" Sumin nodded calmly. "We expected this. Director Park prepared me for this possibility. You need to warn your people." "I already have." Seeing Yunji's confusion, Sumin smiled slightly and pulled back her sleeve, revealing what looked like a living tattoo that pulsed with faint light. "Our communication systems are part of us. I've been in contact with Earth since I arrived." 2 days later, the colonial fleet departed, with Yunji reluctantly aboard Li's flagship, the Dreadnought. As they approached Earth's orbit 3 weeks later, they found something unexpected: a flotilla of strange, organic-looking vessels waiting for them. "Are those ships?" Li asked incredulously. "Bioships," Yunji confirmed, remembering descriptions Taiwan had shared. "Grown, not built, like everything else they create." The comm system activated, and Taiwan's face appeared on screen. "Commander Li, Commander Kim, Earth welcomes peaceful visitors, but will defend itself against resource extraction without consent. Your fleet is impressive, but remember, you face not just our ships, but an entire living planet that has evolved alongside us." Li stepped forward, his face tight with controlled anger. "Director Park, we come representing all colonial humanity. Earth's resources are the birthright of all humans, not just those who happen to remain behind." "Those who happen to remain behind," Taiwan repeated, his usually calm demeanor showing cracks. "You mean those who were too poor to buy their way onto the evacuation ships? Those who were abandoned?" As the two leaders argued, Yunji noticed Ambassador Han's ship moving into an unusual position. With sudden clarity, she realized what was about to happen. "Commander Li," she interrupted urgently, "the Taikar vessel is powering weapons too late." The Taikar ship fired on one of the bioships, which erupted not in flames, but in a shower of spores that quickly engulfed the attacker's hull. And just like that, the collision of worlds that Yunji had feared began in earnest. Chaos erupted as the spores spread across the Taikar ship's hull, forming a web-like pattern that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The vessel's systems began shutting down one by one, disabled by the organic attack that acted more like a virus than a conventional weapon. "All ships, hold fire!" Yunji shouted, but it was too late. 2 colonial cruisers had already launched. Missiles toward the nearest bioships, the new Terran vessels didn't attempt to evade. Instead, they opened what appeared to be specialized pores, releasing clouds of shimmering particles that enveloped the incoming missiles. The explosives detonated harmlessly within these clouds, their energy somehow absorbed. "What kind of technology is this?" Lee muttered, his confidence visibly shaken. "Not technology as we understand it," Yunji replied grimly. "Biology weaponized and evolved over centuries. The colonial fleet's tactical advantage was quickly evaporating. Their weapons, designed to penetrate shields and armor, struggled against biological systems that adapted in real time to each attack. Meanwhile, the disabled Taikar ship drifted helplessly, its crew unable to regain control. Then something unexpected happened. All communications suddenly flooded with a signal so powerful it overrode the fleet's security protocols. On every screen throughout both fleets appeared the image of a massive object moving through deep space, a construct of some kind, vast beyond comprehension. "This transmission was intercepted by our long-range sensors 4 days ago," Taewon's voice announced. "We've been tracking this object's approach. It's on a direct course for Earth." Lee's face paled. "What is it?" "We don't know," Taewon admitted. "But our historical records contain descriptions of similar vessels. 3 centuries ago, just before the evacuation ships left, our scientists detected unusual readings at the edge of the solar system. They were dismissed as equipment errors due to the environmental chaos." A young woman appeared beside Taewon, her eyes entirely black, an obvious genetic modification for enhanced vision. "I'm Do-yeon Kang, head scientist of New Terra's Defense Division," she introduced herself. "We believe this is the vanguard of a species we call the Void Harvesters. Ancient records from both the Lumi and Taikar, shared with us through intercepted communications, suggest they've visited this region of space before roughly every 7,000 years. Hyunji turned to Lee. "Commander, we need to contact the Lumi and Taikar representatives immediately." Within hours, an uneasy truce had formed. The disabled Taikar vessel was released from the biological webbing, and representatives from all factions gathered aboard the dreadnought. Ambassador Han arrived looking shaken, his usually immaculate uniform rumpled. "The object in that transmission matches ancient warnings in our oldest historical texts," he confirmed reluctantly. "The World Eaters, we called them. They harvested entire planets of specific biological resources, leaving nothing behind." The Lumi representative nodded solemnly. "Our ancestors fought them alongside the Taikar, despite our differences. We barely survived." "Why Earth?" Lee asked. "Why now?" "I am Director Taewon Park," he said in perfect, if formally accented, standard colonial. "Welcome back to Earth, distant cousins." Yunji bowed slightly, following a tradition her grandmother had taught her. "Commander Yunji Kim of the Colonial Fleet. We thought Earth was dead." Taewon's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his large eyes. A convenient assumption for those who abandoned it, perhaps. The statement stung, but Yunji couldn't deny its truth. "Please walk with me," Taewon continued, gesturing toward a path that seemed to form itself as they approached. As they walked, Yunji noticed that the ground beneath their feet was slightly yielding, almost like walking on living tissue. Plants turned to follow their movement, not like simple phototropism but with conscious awareness. "How did you survive?" Junho asked, unable to contain his scientific curiosity. "The environmental collapse was catastrophic." Taewon smiled for the first time. "We adapted. We had to become partners with the planet rather than its masters." He gestured to the living city around them. "Everything you see is a collaboration between human ingenuity and Earth's biological systems." They entered what appeared to be a vast indoor garden, but was actually a civic center. People worked at stations grown from living material, their hands sometimes directly interfacing with plant-like structures that served as their technology. "Is that some form of computer?" Yunji asked, pointing to what looked like a flowering plant that displayed images in the air above it. "We don't use computers as you understand them," Taewon explained. "Our technology is biological, grown rather than built. It's a symbiotic relationship, The systems get what they need from us, and we get what we need from them. A young woman approached, carrying what looked like a fruit. She handed it to Taiwan, who offered it to Yunji. "Please, refresh yourself." Yunji hesitated, then took the fruit. When she bit into it, a cool, refreshing liquid filled her mouth, instantly relieving the thirst she hadn't realized she felt. "This is incredible," she said truthfully. Taiwan led them to a viewing platform overlooking the city. From this vantage point, they could see how the urban environment flowed naturally into the wilderness beyond, without clear boundaries. After the ships left, Taiwan said quietly, those who remained faced extinction. The air was toxic, the soil poisoned, the seas acidic. Conventional human biology couldn't survive. "So you changed your biology," Junho concluded, studying Taiwan with new understanding. The director nodded. "The first generation of scientists used what was left of our genetic technology to begin adapting. Each generation became more attuned to Earth's new reality. We developed chlorophyll-enhanced skin cells that can photosynthesize during daylight. Our lungs can filter toxins that would kill an unmodified human. Our digestive systems can process substances your body would reject as poison." "You're still human," Yunji said firmly, though she was unsure if she was trying to convince Taiwan or herself. "We are new Terrans," he corrected gently. "Human, yes, but evolved for Earth as it is now, not as it was. Just as you colonial humans have adapted to life in space and on terraformed worlds." As evening approached, the entire city began to glow. With bioluminescence, it was breathtakingly beautiful, like walking through a living dream. "There's something I don't understand," Yunji said, as they watched the sunset from the platform. "If you've been here all along, why didn't you contact us? Our colonies have had long-range communication capability for over a century." Taiwan turned to her, his expression unreadable in the fading light. "We've known about your colonies for decades. We've intercepted your transmissions, studied your development. Then why—" "Because you left us to die," he said simply, without anger. "Our ancestors were abandoned here. We rebuilt civilization from the ashes without your help. The question isn't why we didn't contact you, Commander Kim. The question is, why are you here now?" Yunji had no answer. As night fell completely on this renewed Earth, she realized that her small expedition had stumbled upon not just a discovery, but a reckoning. The abandoned children of Earth had not only survived, they had thrived, creating a civilization that made the technological marvels of the colonies seem crude by comparison. And now, for better or worse, the two branches of humanity were face to face once more. The journey back to the colonies was tense. Hyunji had convinced Taiwan to send a representative, a young New Terran scientist named Su Min, to accompany them. She sat now in the Swallow's common area, seemingly fascinated by the ship's mechanical technology, even as she politely declined to use it herself. "Your systems are so separate from you," Su Min observed, watching Junho work at a console. "Don't you find that limiting?" Junho laughed nervously. "I'd find it more limiting to have technology literally under my skin." Yunji watched their interaction with concern. If she found the new Terran's biological advancements unsettling, how would the rest of colonial society react? She got her answer. 3 weeks later, when she stood before the Galactic Council, now expanded to include representatives from the Lumi and Taikar alien allies. The chamber erupted in chaos as she finished her report. "A thriving civilization? On Earth?" Councillor Yoon pounded his fist on the table. "Impossible! Our surveys confirmed total environmental collapse." "Your surveys were wrong," Yunji stated, firmly. "I've brought proof." She nodded to Su Min, who stepped forward. The chamber fell silent. The new Terran's slightly green-tinged skin and oversized eyes drew stares of both fascination and disgust. "Greetings," Su Min said, her voice melodic. "I bring peaceful words from Director Park and the people of New Terra." The Taikar representative, a tall, ridge-faced alien named Ambassador Han, leaned forward with obvious alarm. "This creature claims to be human. It has clearly been genetically modified beyond recognition. A violation of the Biological Preservation Treaty." "The treaty doesn't apply to Earth," Yunji countered. "Earth wasn't part of the colonial alliance when the treaty was signed." Before further arguments could erupt, the doors to the chamber burst open, Fleet Commander Ji-Ho Lee strode in, flanked by corporate representatives from the Nova Resources Consortium. "Forgive my tardiness," Lee announced without actual apology. "I was consulting with our economic advisors about this development." Yoon-ji felt a chill run down her spine. Lee had always been ambitious, with close ties to the corporations that funded colonial expansion. "Commander Kim," Lee nodded to her with a tight smile before turning to the council. "While this discovery is certainly fascinating from a scientific perspective, we should focus on the practical implications. Earth was considered dead, its resources abandoned. By colonial law, that makes it open for reclamation." Su-min stepped forward. "Earth is not abandoned. It is our home, populated by billions of new Terrans." "Billions?" several councillors murmured in surprise. "Yes," Su-min confirmed. "Our biological integration with the PL." The abandoned cities of Earth stood silent against the backdrop of toxic skies. What had once been the cradle of humanity now lay poisoned and still. The year was 2097, and Earth had finally given up on humans after centuries of abuse. "Commander." Hyunji Kim watched from the observation deck as the massive generation ship Horizon pulled away from Earth's orbit. She was just 23, her dark eyes reflecting the blue marble growing smaller in the distance. Unlike most officers aboard, she hadn't been born into privilege. Her parents had been mechanics at the Seoul spaceport, working double shifts for 15 years to afford passage on this final evacuation vessel. "Taking one last look?" a voice asked behind her. Yoon-ji turned to see Captain Sung, his weathered face solemn. "I keep thinking about all those we left behind," she said. The evacuation had been plagued by corruption. Only 1 in 1,000 Earth inhabitants had secured passage on the ships. The wealthy bought their way to safety, while billions faced the slow death of a dying planet. "We had no choice," Captain Sung said, though his voice lacked conviction. The environmental collapse was beyond repair. Yoon-ji nodded but remained unconvinced. Humanity's greatest achievement, escaping a planet they had destroyed, was also its greatest shame. Decades passed aboard the Horizon. The generation ship became its own world as it journeyed toward the Proxima Centauri system. Yoon-ji rose through the ranks, her tactical brilliance and unwavering work ethic earning her command of her own vessel once the colony was established. By the time she reached 50, humanity had spread across 3 star systems. They'd encountered 2 alien species, the diplomatic Lumi and the reserved Taikar, forming uneasy alliances. Colony ships had mastered faster-than-light travel. Earth became a distant memory, a cautionary tale told to children who had never seen a natural ocean or forest. Yet Yoon-ji never forgot. In her quarters aboard the military vessel Dauntless, she kept a small container of earth soil her father had collected before departure. Sometimes at night, she would open it just to smell the scent of the world that had been. "Commander, you're needed on the bridge," her second officer's voice came through the comm system. When she arrived, the science officer Jun-ho was studying strange readings on his console. "What is it?" she asked. "Long-range scans picked up unusual energy signatures from the Sol system," he explained, excitement in his voice. "Specifically from Earth." "That's impossible," Yoon-ji replied. "Earth has been dead for 3 centuries." Jun-ho shook his head. "The signatures are artificial in origin. They show patterns consistent with technology, but not like anything in our database. The discovery should have prompted immediate investigation, but when Yoon-ji brought the findings to the Galactic Council, she was dismissed." "Commander Kim, with all due respect, your personal connection to Earth may be clouding your judgment," said Councillor Min, his hologram flickering slightly. "Our instruments aren't calibrated for such distances. These readings are likely errors." "I've triple-checked the data," Yoon-ji insisted. "Something is happening on Earth." "Earth is dead," another councillor stated flatly. "And even if it weren't, we have more pressing concerns. The Taikar are pushing for additional mining rights in the Sirius system, and tensions are rising." After the meeting, Yoon-ji returned to the Dauntless, frustration burning within her. That night, alone in her quarters, she made a decision that would alter the course of human history. "Officer Jun-ho, assemble a small team," she said the next morning. We're going to Earth. But the Council explicitly denied your request, Junho replied, concern evident in his voice. Yunji's expression hardened. This isn't a Council mission, it's personal leave. I need to know what's happening on Earth. It took 3 weeks to make preparations without arousing suspicion. Yunji selected 5 crew members she trusted completely and requested the small scout ship Swallow for what she claimed was a training exercise. By the time the Council realized what was happening, the Swallow had already entered FTL jump toward the Sol system. If we're right, Yunji told her small crew as they gathered around the ship's common area, we may be about to make first contact with whatever has evolved on Earth after us. If we're wrong, we face court-martial, Junho finished with a nervous smile. The journey to Earth took 17 days, each one adding to Yunji's anxiety. What would they find? Ruins? Nothing? Or something entirely unexpected? When they finally dropped out of FTL on the dark side of the moon, Earth came into view. The planet that had once been blue and white was now dominated by deep greens and purples, with strange, swirling patterns in its atmosphere. Life readings? Yunji asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Junho studied his console, then looked up with wide eyes. Massive biological activity, Commander. And he paused, checking the readings again. Artificial structures, extensive ones. As the Swallow moved closer to Earth's orbit, they began receiving transmissions, not radio waves or standard communication protocols, but pulses of data unlike anything they'd seen before. It's some form of communication, their communications specialist said, but I can't decipher it. Yunji stared at the view screen, at the planet that had supposedly died centuries ago. Someone's home, she said quietly, and they're not like us anymore. As the Swallow began its descent through Earth's strange new atmosphere, Yunji couldn't help but wonder if she was about to meet the ghosts of those left behind, or something entirely new that had risen from humanity's ashes. The Swallow broke through the cloud layer, and the crew gasped collectively. Below them stretched not the barren wasteland they had expected, but a landscape transformed. Massive structures that resembled trees, but stood kilometers tall, dotted the landscape. Between them lay sprawling cities that seemed to grow from the Earth itself rather than being built upon it. Are those buildings? Junho asked, pressing his face against the viewport. I think so, Yunji replied, but unlike anything we've built in the colonies. The structures appeared to be alive, pulsing with bioluminescent light in patterns too regular to be natural. Rivers flowed through the cities in carefully designed channels, and vast fields of purple and blue vegetation surrounded the urban areas. We're being scanned, the ship's tactical officer announced suddenly. Multiple energy signatures focusing on our vessel. Yunji gripped the command chair. Any signs of weapons? Negative, but our systems are having trouble interpreting their technology. Without warning, the Swallow's engines powered down. The vessel continued its descent, now guided by an external force. We've lost control, the pilot said, hands moving frantically over the controls. Something's bringing us in. Yunji maintained her composure despite her racing heart. All crew, prepare for first contact protocol. Remember, we represent all of colonial humanity now. The ship settled gently onto a circular platform that seemed to soften upon their touch, cushioning their landing. Outside the viewport, figures had begun to gather. They appeared human at first glance, but as they drew closer, subtle differences became apparent. Their skin had a faint greenish undertone, and their eyes were larger, more sensitive to light. Most striking was their fluid, almost liquid grace as they moved. They're human, whispered Junho, or they were once. Yunji nodded slowly. The descendants of those we left behind. After cycling through the airlock and conducting quick atmospheric tests that showed the air was breathable, Yunji led her, team outside. The gravity felt slightly stronger than they remembered from historical records of Earth, but manageable. A tall figure stepped forward from the gathered crowd. His features were sharp, his hair a deep blue-black that seemed to shift. Colors in the light,